impromptu live on this channel. And if you're here, let us know in the chat and let us know if you hear properly, if you can see us properly. So what we are going to do today, first of all, as you can see, I'm here with a special guest. It's Shia Jordan, and she's got a YouTube channel about living in Italy. She has moved from America to Italy, and now she has been living there, and she has been traveling around. She's been learning Italian, and today we've decided to answer some questions together about learning Italian, and it would be good for you to get two points of view. You know, my point of view was Italian and teaching Italian, and the point of view of a learner who has been learning Italian and is now currently in Italy practicing, you know, and also learning more so that she can become better. And so we have collected a few questions from my students, from the people that follow Shia, and today we are going to pick a few that you may help you as well. However, if you do have a question and you'd like to submit it to us, please do it in the chat and type it in the chat. So that we can answer your question. And obviously, if you're here, say also ciao in the chat and tell us where you're from and you know, why you're learning Italian, because probably if you're watching this, you are learning Italian, you're an Italian learner, or maybe you want to move to Italy as well, and you'd like to know, you know, you would like some tips about it. We are very open about all these things. So feel free to submit your question. And Shia, would you like to add anything?
No, I mean, I think that was a great introduction. And I'm super excited because I always like talking about Italian and learning Italian. So I'm always happy to share my advice and what I'm going through now, actually living in Italy and learning Italian. So I'm very excited for this conversation.
Yeah, me too. And especially having it with you because I've been following your YouTube channel and I do think that it's genuine, you know, all the advice that you give. And it's quite cool to do this together. So let's go. I have my question here in front of me. So if you see me like reading, that's what I'm reading. Okay, so let's start with the first question. And this question is about how do I find people willing to study together since I don't have native speakers and people learning Italian around me? That's a really good question.
Yeah.
So would you like to go first or shall I?
Yeah, I'll start. So obviously this was a challenge that I had living in the US. Even though I lived in LA and there's people from all over the world, it's hard. It's not a place you can just go out and just find a bunch of Italian people to practice with. So one of the things that I did was I actually used some different apps that you can just download on your phone. Um, I used an app called Tandem and an app called Hello Talk, and they're both free. And there are ways that you can connect with native speakers. So I set my language that I'm learning as Italian. And then there would be Italians who wanted to learn English. So it's like a language exchange app. And it's really good because you can just start like talking with people and you can send messages, but I also like that you can send audio messages as well. So that way you can get help with things on pronunciation. And there's so many people on there, but it's kind of like, you know, people have little profiles so you can see there are some people who are really serious who want to help you. They're almost like teachers or tutors, and they're really active. So it really helps to practice. And it's cool because, you know, like you never know. I've heard some stories of some people actually kind of talking a lot. And then once they go to these countries, they can meet up as friends and, you know, they have like really good relationships that they've built with this cool like language exchange stuff. And it's a free way to do it. If you don't have access to like living in the country that you're learning the language of, I think apps like this, and just like online resources like that are really good ways to get practice.
Yeah, I think it's a good thing that we have the internet nowadays, and you don't have necessarily to go in places the place where you live. To be honest with you, for me it was the same, and but it was the other way around for me because the first language that I learned was English, and so I come from a small city in Italy near Naples, and there was hardly no one spoke English there,
Yeah.
and yeah, the question here is specifically about how you can find people you can learn the language with, and for me, it was like looking on the internet because I would find people that were more open-minded and more that would resonate more with me, with my interests, and
Definitely.
so that would help me to have a rapport with them, because sometimes it's not just about find a person that study the language, it's also about find the right person,
Hmm.
because you want to speak to in order to speak to that person, because if you don't resonate with it, with him or her, it's not going to last long.
Yeah, that's very true.
Yeah, and another thing that I would say is this is something that really helped me connect the language to something you're passionate about. For me, it was art, and I got into this community of artists because back then I was studying to become an illustrator, a cartoonist, and most of them were speaking English, and that's how I started to speak more English, write more English, and this community of artists was online, and so think like think wider, think like what are the things that I like and that I can connect to the language that I'm learning. Maybe you love cooking and you can join some Italian Facebook group that talk about cooking,
Mhm.
or maybe you like yoga and you can find so much online in Italian about yoga nowadays, and you can start to connect with these people that like the same thing as you, and you can speak in Italian about it. So I think
Mhm.
that's the exciting bit.
Yeah. No, that's a really good tip. I actually did make a video where I talked about this, about like exactly what you said about connecting language learning to something that you like, because then it's also easier to stay motivated and stay consistent if you are learning a language while you're doing something you enjoy, like art or cooking is a really good one too. I know a lot of people also have talked about learning languages, playing like video games, because you connect to a server, and if you connect to like an Italian server or a Spanish one, and then you could be, because people are talking like on their microphones and stuff. So you could be meeting friends that way of people who have similar interests and are also speaking in the language that you want to learn. So the internet is a very cool place to be able to connect to people of, learning all different languages.
Yeah. And by the way, I just want to say also that I have a whole workbook that I put together about this, how to connect your language to your passion. And
Hmm.
I'm going to leave the link in the chat in case someone would like to get
Yeah.
it and, explore more about their passions and how they can link it to the language they're learning. Um, so it's I think it's a really good thing to do, and then it doesn't get boring.
Hmm. Yeah.
Okay, shall we go to next question?
Yeah.
Okay, let's pick. Um, I don't know how to find motivation to study when it starts getting really difficult. Okay.
Hmm.
You'd like to go?
Yeah, I'm trying to think. I mean, I think for me, I was like, move to Italy. um, no, that is very difficult, because
Mm,
one of the biggest things, especially when I wasn't here and using the language every day, it's very hard to stay motivated when you're learning by yourself. And I tell my followers all the time because I think a lot of people assume that I was just like studying every day all the time. I never took breaks, but I tell my followers like there were a lot of times where I wasn't studying for weeks or something because, life gets in the way or you just things happen. So, you have to be patient with yourself. But I think for me, like I kind of would have these lists of things that always brought me back. So one of these things was like Italian TV shows that I really liked. If I found that I kind of stopped watching those shows, I would be like, oh, let me go back to that, or let me watch a new video of this YouTuber that I used to like. Because one of the big things for me is that I love the way Italian sounds. And so in the beginning, when I was first learning, whenever I would hear Italian again, it would motivate me because I would think, okay, I want to be able to speak so badly like that. So even just something as simple as that was like a big motivator for me. So
Mhm.
almost having kind of like a little list of things that if you watch this or you listen to this Italian song that you really like, something that kind of just helps you get back into that mindset of like, oh, now I remember why like this is so fun, things like that.
Mhm.
I think having that kind of little list to look at when you're in that time of like, uh-oh, it's getting really hard. But also just knowing that as you do advance, like it is very hard. Every day when I'm in school and now I'm learning these really complex topics, it's difficult, but you should also be proud of yourself because now you're at the point where you are learning this really tough stuff and you just have to be practicing it and speaking and using it.
Mhm.
But don't let the challenge of it, stop you or make you feel like, oh, I can't do this anymore, because you should be proud of the progress that you're making.
Yeah, I so agree with this. And I'm going to add to this. I just want to say ciao to all people that are joining us right now. And please say ciao in the chat. And we are answering question about learning Italian. So feel free to type in your question if you want to in the chat so we can answer it. And so the question that we are answering right now is about motivation. So Shia made a really good point about reminding yourself why you're learning this language and why you like it when things get difficult. And I like your idea of having a list of,
Mhm.
the things that you like. And I would say for me, it's also having it's like, yeah, a list or where somewhere you have written it down what you could do or what you could become if you were able to speak this language fluently. So where would this language bring you if you learned it properly? And just giving you some space to dream and, connecting with, the first time why you chose to learn Italian can help you give a little bit of push. And sometimes I have to say you might have to take some break as well. It's okay to take a break if you're finding it very difficult, because sometimes when you take breaks from things and you stop insisting on something, oh, I have to learn this right now, and then you come back to it with a fresh brain, you just look at it differently, and it actually helps you to understand it better and you see it from another point of view.
Mhm.
Yeah. Okay, so let's do the next question. Okay, let's pick something more language related. how to how to learn to roll your R's.
Oh gosh.
Oh goodness.
Mm,
I think I'll start with this one,
okay.
because first of all, I have to say, many people make a big deal out of the R. Oh, my R is not good enough. Oh, my R sounds awful. Oh, da 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 da. It's okay. Okay, I want to say the R is not a distinctive sound. It's not as important in Italian as other sounds. I know this may sound weird to you, but listen to me. Because there are some sounds in Italian that are much more important than the R, that if you make them wrong, you end up completely saying something else. And people are all focusing on the R that, even if you don't properly, they will understand you. And so I would say, first of all, don't make a big deal out of it, because you don't have to get it perfect in order to be understood. Because at the end of the day, the the main aim of a language is to communicate, right? And if people understand you, I don't see the why you should worry about it. Okay.
Yeah.
And then I would like to say that when you listen, and this has happened to me because I had the same problem with a sound in English. It was the th sound, think, and I couldn't do it properly. And I was the same. I was getting mad. I was like, oh, why can I not make it? It sounds
Mm-hmm.
stupid. I feel stupid when I make it, all that stuff. But then I realized that by listening to a lot of English and
Mm-hmm.
trying, it kind of came out at some point. And it was because it was the constant input, and it was me constantly trying, you know. And so I believe it's about input and practicing. Input and practicing. Um, One thing, there is one way to try to make the R sound. It may work for you, but as I said, you have to listen. I think if you do listen a lot, your brain will start to make that connection, and then it will come out from your mouth and you won't even realize it. So one tip is like to do the sound quicker and quicker until you get like
Yeah.
this is the one tip. But for me, I think the best thing is to keep listening to a lot of Italian and trying, and then the sound will come to you. And most of all, don't get mad at it, because it's important. It's not as important as other sound, like vowels. Vowels are so important in Italian. If you sometimes mispronounce a vowel into a word, you end up saying completely different words. Whereas the R, it's not as important. That's what I would say.
No, that's all good. That's very good to know because I think for me, I was lucky that I didn't struggle with it because I learned Spanish. Like I don't speak Spanish fluently, but I started learning Spanish when I was very young. So, if you're learning how to make these sounds when you're younger, it's obviously a lot easier. But some people who never have done that, I mean, I'm in a class with people from all over the world, and there's always people who get really frustrated that they can't do the R sounds, especially some people. For example, a lot of times the people who speak French really struggle with it because like the French R is so different. Um, so I mean, as you grow up, like it's very interesting. This is like linguistic stuff, but just the way like your tongue placement and stuff, like because of the language you speak,
Yes.
like you said, some sounds are so hard to make, but other people can make them. So that like it's physically possible to do
Mm.
it. It's just that your mouth and the sounds that you're used to making aren't you're not used to that because you've
Mm.
never had to put your tongue that way or whatever. Um, I think for me, my R sound wasn't super strong. And like you said, listening and practicing, like I singing along to songs really helps with my pronunciation. So doing things like that, I know now that my R sound is a lot better and then I'm able to do it a lot better than when I first started. But the thing that you said about actually practicing it, I did find, I think it was a video on YouTube, and I think the woman was saying like butter or something, and then like speeding it up because finding words in your language that kind of put your tongue or something in the right placement and then just like speeding it up like you said until your tongue is kind of doing that correct
Hmm.
thing. So finding videos that can relate to your language and figuring out a way to kind of like trick yourself into doing it
Yeah.
is a good way to practice. But like you said, I mean, you're Italian, so you're telling everyone that like it's not the end of the world if you can't do it,
Ah,
but
it's
with
really not,
practice.
believe me.
Yeah, exactly. So you heard it here. It's fine. Don't nobody needs to worry.
No. Um, yeah, there are some Italian who native speaker who don't roll the R perfectly, but it's okay. This is a phenomena called la R moscia.
Mhm.
R moscia meaning moscia. How do you say, like, not strong, like floppy,
Mm.
the floppy R. Some people speak like this, and
Mm.
actually, there are some presenter like on TV that do speak like this, and they are famous because the way they speak is fascinating.
Mhm.
And like, if someone who is on TV who's not have a strong R in Italy and is Italian is there and is understood widely by the whole nation because it's on
Yeah.
TV, so I believe you should not worry about it.
Yeah.
Yeah. So as you mentioned, Spanish and Italian,
Mm.
I'm gonna pick this question, which was about Spanish and Italian, and where was it? How to stop confusing Spanish and Italian if you know both. What would you
Mm.
say? Would you like me to go first, or any?
I mean, maybe I could go because I don't have too much advice, and maybe you could take it away after because
Yes.
everyone I talk to now, like I tell them that my Spanish is pretty much gone. No, I mean, I think it's very interesting because learning Italian, when I hear Spanish now, I can understand a lot more because they are so similar. But it is very hard because if I want to try to think in Spanish or say
Mhm.
something in Spanish, I feel like my mind, because I'm studying Italian every day, just automatically goes to Italian.
Yes.
Or there's like this mix of half Italian, half Spanish. And when I first started learning Italian, sometimes I could recall vocabulary words in Spanish, but not Italian. And
Mhm.
I would be talking, and all of a sudden there would be like a Spanish word in my Italian. um, but yeah, I mean, I think for me, it's like since I'm so focused now on Italian, I definitely know that I still have Spanish in there, but I don't necessarily have advice for like how to distinguish them because they are so similar that I also wonder this too. Like, if I was actively studying both, what would your advice be to be able to distinguish them?
Yeah. I would say, as I studied Spanish as well, when I was studying Spanish intensively,
Mhm.
sometimes when I was speaking in Italian to my mom, to my family, I would come up with a Spanish word. And I think it's normal when you know both languages, but then, I would realize, oh, that's Spanish. Okay, never mind. But I think it's normal when you study both languages. Since they are similar, you will mix them up. And I think that the real question is to not stop confusing them, because you will, even if just a little bit, but to learn to recognize when that happened, and just first of all be okay with it, and then self correct.
Yeah.
Because you, when two things are similar, it's very easy to get them confused. So I think you just have to be okay with it and recognize that, like you were saying, when you study something intensively like Italian, and then you have learned Spanish before, probably you will feel like that, you're losing your Spanish because Italian is so strong in your brain. But Spanish is still there. You just have to maybe read something or listen to something, and it will come back to you. And so it's just about having the courage to just say, hey, I made a mistake. This is Spanish, this is Italian, it's fine. And just practicing a lot. And I think the more you practice one language, the better you become at separating it from the other that is similar.
Mhm.
It's all about, I believe, practice, and also getting okay with, if it happens, you confuse, that's all.
Yeah.
Um, there is a question from the chat. It says, what Italian shows, TV or YouTube, can you recommend? Thanks.
Yeah. So I have videos on my favorite like TV series that I've watched, YouTubers, and then also even some podcasts that I've listened to. But I would say Netflix has a lot of really great shows. I the first Italian show I ever watched was called Baby, because it was set in Rome, and I watched it after I got back from Rome, and it was like another motivator for me. That show is very dark and intense, but seeing the shots of Rome was like another motivator for me to come back. Um, and there's a show called Summertime that has a few seasons, and that's like a fun, lighthearted show. Um, a Scam Italia is also a big one. I really like that show. It's very like a lot of teen drama, but it's very fun. Yeah, I mean, what I did is I typed in Italian language TV shows and movies, and there are so many on Netflix. I mean, if you have Netflix, that are really great. Um, and I started off watching them with Italian sub or English subtitles at the very, very beginning because I wouldn't have been able to understand. But at that point, I was just trying to like hear the language and pick up, phrases that I would hear repeated a lot. And then once later on, I started becoming more intermediate. Like now I still will watch everything with Italian subtitles because it can be kind of hard to be able to hear without, it's easier to like match what they're saying with what you can read in Italian. So it's still hard. I can't completely listen to something without Italian subtitles. But yeah, YouTubers, I have a video on that. I don't know if I should list all of them off, but a tip for YouTube if you're trying to find YouTubers.
Sorry.
I have like church bells in the background right now, so we're both um, what I did is I would look up basically if you like vlogs, like you watch a day in my life, like look up the translation of that in the language you're learning. So for Italian, I would just search like una giornata nella mia vita, and then you get all the Italian ones. Because if you just look up Italian vlog, like you probably won't be able to find what you're looking for. So think of the videos you like, whether it's cooking or whatever on YouTube, and then just search like what it would be called in Italian. And that's how you can unlock like all the different Italian YouTubers. So that's my tip of how to find the content.
Yes, that's a really good one. And also, I would not underestimate the power of watching films that you have already watched in your native language dubbed into Italian.
Yeah.
Because Italian dubbing is really good. In fact, in Italy, we have one of the best dubbing school in Europe. And so you can be sure that if you watch something dubbed in Italian, the quality of the dubbing is quite good. And it's so much fun to see how things are translated sometimes. I myself, when I watch something in Italian and I know that it's American maybe, and then I watch the original version and I see, oh my goodness, this is how they translate this. And the other day, in fact, I was on Amazon Prime and I was watching this film called Bliss, and automatically Amazon Prime put it into Italian for me. So I watched it into Italian. But then it was like English as well. It was obviously English, the native language of the actors. And while I was watching it in Italian, I would come to a point where, oh my goodness, this is an Italian idiom. Like, how did they translate that? I want to know, like, what's the and then I would rewind and rewatch the whole thing in English. But this is actually how I also improved my Spanish. I used to watch my favorite Disney cartoons in Spanish. I knew them by heart already in Italian. Like, I knew the story, but for me, it was just about, I was interested in the language, how it was translated. And I learned so many good words by rewatching stuff that I already knew, but in another language. Yeah, and you were saying also about subtitles, because we actually have a question. It says about when watching movies or videos, do you watch with English subtitles or the ones of the language you're learning? Okay, I have to say now, since I'm Italian, I still watch some films with English subtitles because sometimes I don't understand all. And sometimes it's just like mutter words. I'm like, what did he say? And I still find, like, I lived in the UK for a while now, probably, I don't know, like 8 years or something. But I still watch, I can speak to people, I understand people, but sometimes I still watch a film and I still watch it with English, film in English with the English subtitles. And, I'm not ashamed of it. I mean, so I need the subtitles and it's okay. Whatever helps you to learn and communicate and understand, for me, it's good. What do you think?
Yeah, I mean, it's funny you say that. Sometimes I watch things with English subtitles because sometimes there are certain accents, or like when I went to watch Bridgerton, sometimes I'm like, what? If there's like different ways of speaking, or especially shows that are set in different times and maybe the English is a little different, of course, use English subtitles because that's probably like super next level. If even I, a native English speaker, sometimes I'm like, what did they say?
Yeah.
But yes, I don't think there's any shame in still using subtitles. I personally, like I said, a lot of people ask me, like, oh, well, should I start off right away with Italian subtitles?
Mm.
No, because you won't have any idea of really what's happening. I mean, you can have some
Mhm.
context because of what you're watching. Um, but it's not, you don't have to feel like, oh, this is like a crutch that I'm leaning on if I'm watching Italian with English subtitles. What I did with Baby, actually, when I watched that show, is I watched the whole first season with the English subtitles. So like you said, you're that way you can rewatch something that you already know the story, you already know the plot points of things that happen. And I happen to like the show so much that I wanted to watch the first season again before the second season came out. And then I watched it again with Italian subtitles.
Yeah.
So I think take as much time as you need just using English or whatever your native language is, those subtitles. Like you don't have to feel pressure to start using Italian right away. I think it's like you kind of just know once you get to a point where you can start picking up, you know, a decent amount. Again, you don't have to understand 90, 100% of it because sometimes I still watch movies and there's still parts where I might have to rewind and like watch it again. But I think you'll kind of know, like, okay, let me try to start watching with Italian subtitles and see how much I can pick up. And then you just kind of go from there and keep watching, keep practicing. And like you said, watch things that you've already watched before. Cartoons are really good because they're just fun and lighthearted and usually like pretty easy to understand. You're not going to have these really crazy words in like a children's cartoon. So that's also a good place to start.
Yeah. For me, cartoons helped me a lot because also I found the way that words are enunciated, they're much more
Mm-hmm.
clearer
Yeah.
than films. So do watch cartoons, it's cool. By the way, if you're liking our advice, do put a like to the video, to the
Yeah.
live stream. Okay, let's do another question. And this one says, my biggest problem learning Italian right now is where do I start?
Mm,
Three question marks. There seems to be so much content available and I don't know where to begin. And I need to learn some basics for starters. Can you help me get started? Okay, so I'll answer this right after that because I know what it feels like, especially nowadays. It's just like so much
mhm.
available that you feel
Yeah.
overwhelmed.
Mhm.
As per my experience, at the moment I am learning Japanese, and at the beginning I was using what was available online for free, and it was just my way to dip my toes into the language to see if I really liked it. But then I soon realized that I needed more structure and I needed some kind of way to see my progress. I just didn't want to do just random stuff. And so I decided to just invest into a course where it would get me from start to finish. And that is, for me, to be honest, this if you're very confused about where to start, I would not hesitate to invest into something that you actually feel that could help you to get to the level that you want, because it will save you time, because you will not feel like that you have to collect all these resources online that you don't even know how to structure. And it will also save your sanity because you would just be like completely, like you completely don't know where to start and where to finish. And like, I think in a way this question answer its question as well. I'll need to learn some basics. So, you know, the first thing maybe is just to get some kind of maybe a course, or even a teacher that teaches you the basic, and move from there, and then just see how it goes for you. Because if you already saying that you don't know where to start, I assume that you have already kind of tasted Italian and you know that you really want to do it. So if you really want to do it, I would just go for it and invest into something that can help you achieve what you want to achieve. Do you want to add anything to that?
Yeah, I mean, I think what you said I would definitely agree with, because I think it's, some people just do better when they have that structure and that kind of plan organized for them. Because, yeah, one thing that I realize when you start learning by yourself and you're not in a class, it is really hard to figure out, okay, like what's my roadmap? Like, where do I go? In the beginning, it might not be too hard because it's very basic of like, okay, learning the alphabet, pronunciation, basic beginner stuff. But then you kind of get to this point where there's like all these different roads. And then I'm like, wait, do I learn this tense first or do I go here? Or like, you get to that point where you can't really just be looking up the basic stuff anymore. So I think your advice of finding a course that you think works for you, whether that's like some online thing or if it's like going somewhere and doing a course or getting a tutor, I think is really great. I think for me, if someone's looking for a resource that really helps, that is online and free, I loved Online Italian Club. It's just called Online Italian Club, but
I think I know which one you mean, yes.
yeah, I don't remember how I found it. I think I probably just looked up like how to learn Italian online.
Yeah.
And it was one of the first things that popped up, and it still helps me because it does have things separated out by level, so like A1, A2. And that's kind of where I started from, just like following that, because they had like vocabulary and grammar stuff and little exercises for you to do. So I think that's like a really good place to start if you really have no idea um, how to start learning a language. Maybe this is the first language you've ever learned and you don't know the basics of like starting with letters and alphabet pronunciation, like how to
Yeah.
form sentences, all that kind of stuff. That was a great website for me.
Yeah, and for if you are really starting from the basic, I would also advise if you go to thelanguagerose.com/free, I have a list of free resources that I created, and one is especially for beginners, and it's called Italian, Getting Started with Your Italian for Travel. So if you know that you are learning Italian because you want to travel to Italy, that resource will definitely get you started and teach you some of the basics as well. I'll put the link in the chat as well. Okay, let's do one more. And by the way, folks, if you're watching, do put your questions in the chat because we will answer them. Let's do one more, and let's see. Let's do this one. Italian speaks so quickly. How can I improve my listening skills?
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, I'll go with this one. I will say there is a lot to say about this. First of all, Italians, it may seem that they speak quickly. However, it looks quickly to you because you are in the process of developing your listening skills. So the main thing here is to take it gradually and try to, for example, if you are trying to learn Italian and you're a beginner, don't overwhelm yourself by listening to films already, if you have not done, very, very little Italian, because that's going to be very overwhelming for you. And that will really give you like the idea of, oh my goodness, I will never, learn. But to take it gradually. And one way to do it is, I think, some may disagree with this, but I think it's good to find graded resources, like those listening exercises that are actually good for, at different levels. And I do believe in the power of slow down audio. And today on YouTube you can watch so much stuff, and you can slow down the audio.
Yeah.
And that can really help you to understand like what the person is saying. And one of my advice is, do use the slow down audio, but if you're watching something on YouTube, and also use what is available in textbook. If there are listening exercises, read a transcript. Because some people, they just listen to, for example, they find an exercise in a textbook or even online on an online course, and they listen to it. Oh, this is a listening exercise, so I need to listen to it. And then they don't understand anything, right? And they're like, oh my goodness, I didn't understand. And then they read a transcript and they feel guilty that they're reading the transcript because, oh, I'm reading the transcript, I'm rubbish. No, that's good. You are supposed to read a transcript, because when you read a transcript and listen to the thing that you're listening to again, more over and over, you are making an important connection in your brain. You are connecting words to their written format. And the more you read and listen at the same time, the better you'll be able to decode, say, what the person that is speaking to you is saying. And so, yeah, my advice is always use the transcript of a listening when it's available. Do take advantage of slow down audio, and it's a gradual process. You will get there. The more you listen, again, it's practice. The more you listen, the better you will become.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, I think I would say the same exact thing. It's really just all about listening. And also, like you said, not overwhelming yourself, because in the beginning, I tried to start listening to some YouTubers, and some of them definitely spoke really fast. And I was like, I don't understand any of this. And it's very discouraging at first. But there are definitely people out there who make videos that will speak slower. So you don't have to try to find like this crazy video of natives having a conversation and try to keep up. It can be difficult. But I think, from my experience here, I have school Monday through Friday for 4 hours every day. So you can imagine that when I first got here in Italy, and for 4 hours every day I'm sitting in class having teachers and everyone around me talking to me in Italian, your brain gets very, very tired. And I was like, I don't know how I can do this for, however much longer I'm here, that my brain is so tired by the end of these classes. But it's interesting because now, obviously with time and kind of like exercising your brain in a way, I'm not, I can understand everything that my teachers are saying. I'm not mentally fatigued anymore after class. So it really did show me that, like, you obviously don't have to sit in your room and like listen to Italian for 4 hours if you don't have the time for that, if you're not in a course like I'm doing. But just like listening to it, but also, like you said, making sure that you're actively listening, if that's like reading a transcript, or just making sure that you're paying attention to what's actually being said, and you can figure out hopefully a good amount because it's slow enough. So yeah, like you said, it really is gradual. And you're not gonna figure it out unless you do it. So you really just have to like expose yourself to hearing the language, and like you said, using a transcript too. That's totally fine. And yeah, with time it'll be like me, when now 4 hours of Italian, I'm like, okay.
I understand you, because I remember I think the first time I got here from Italy in the UK, and it was the evening, and I remember being on this bus that was bringing me to campus, to the university where I was going to study. And I just remember starting to chat with this person, or if the person started to chat me, I don't remember, but she was speaking to me in English. And I just felt like, man, I just had a banging headache by the time I got to where I had to get by bus, because
Mhm.
I had already traveled the whole, day. And
Yeah.
then I was just like, my very first long conversation with a native speaker. And I totally get that kind of fatigue, but then, as usual, it does get better with practice.
Hmm.
Yes. Um, okay, I would say, let's do one more question and then we can wrap up.
Yeah.
Um, and let's see if there are any questions already. Okay. Um, how to give consistent practice and studying, not just tiny moments here and there.
Mm.
I love this one.
Yeah. Yeah. Um, yeah, actually, when I read this question, it kind of reminded me of like people who use language apps expecting to learn a language, like there's so many out there and people always ask me how I feel about them. I think, you know, I don't think it's possible to be able to become fluent um, using like Duolingo to learn Italian, because that to me is kind of this idea of like, okay, little things here and there, that's fine. I think you can use it as a supplement to like practice maybe, but I feel like a lot of people think, okay, let me download Duolingo and after a year, like I'll be able to speak Italian. But I think I think it obviously language learning requires this like consistent practice. But as we said way back in the beginning, like finding ways to make sure that like to connect it to things that you already like so that way you can stay consistent. Because I do know a lot of people decide they want to learn a language and then like this question says, oh, they just do a little bit here, they do a little Duolingo, they do a little whatever, just as it comes up. Maybe it only happens where they do Duolingo for 20 minutes like once a week or something, and unfortunately that's just going to like really prolong your process of learning a language.
Mm.
um, so I think that it just comes down to like what we said is making sure the motivation is there. So for me, I decided to learn Italian because there were so many things that I liked about Italian, like the way it sounded, just like even just the culture and everything about Italy. So Italy as just like a place itself, like having all these reasons why you feel kind of connected to this language will help keep that motivation instead of like, oh, let me just choose a language that I don't really feel connected to or I don't have a passion to learn. Like making sure that passion is there is really important. And then also finding ways to make it interesting and exciting to study. Because if you're not a person who wants to do flashcards or a bunch of grammar exercises in a book, obviously grammar is important, but finding ways, like we talked about in the very beginning, cooking, doing art, playing games, like ways that you can make it more a part of your life will help you be more consistent instead of just like doing things here and there.
Mm. Yeah, and one thing that I would say about this is to actually make it easy for you to start,
Mm.
literally to start the study session. So, an example that I can give you from my life is that I have to make myself really easy to start just study Japanese, because if I wait that I have to gather my stuff, and then I have
Mm.
to find where to place it, and then
Yeah.
by the time that I decided all of that, I really don't want to do it anymore. But what I did is I have a little box by my bed, and in that box I put my Japanese textbook that I'm using right now. We're using in the course that I'm taking, and my notebook, and I even have a little paper dictionary because I do like paper dictionaries. And so what I do is in the morning when I have my breakfast, I take my book and I go through it a little bit. And and for me it's very easy to do that because I like having my breakfast in bed, and just while I eat something, I flick through the book, and maybe I can do one exercise, two exercise, and then, half an hour passes and I already done half an hour of Japanese. And even though during that day I don't have any time to do more, still I had done half an hour of it.
Yeah.
And why? Because it's just there. Like, I don't have to think about it. Even like if you think about the app, right? People always want an app for something. Why?
Hmm.
Because it's easy to use, right? They're just there. So how can you make Italian easy for you to study? So think about this and implement what comes up to mind so that it's just easy for you to start and you just do it and you don't have to think too much about it.
Hmm. Yeah, that's a really good tip.
Yeah. So, folks that is watching, thank you so much. If you're liking this, leave us a beautiful like. And Shia, would you like to leave us with any final comment about
Um,
Italian?
Comments in Italian.
No, like
Oh,
anything about learning Italian, any final advice you would like to give? Something
um,
important that you think
um,
people should know?
I would just say for me, because people always like the biggest things are just motivation and passion and stuff like that. Um, I know that I have a big passion for learning Italian, and um, I think something actually that I've just noticed being here is just how happy and proud I feel about myself that I've come this far and I'm able to like I have conversations with Italians now, and it's so hard and it's so scary. I think that actually that is one thing we didn't really cover is just like how it can be really scary to speak to a native speaker. And in the beginning, I was afraid of making mistakes and I didn't like making mistakes. So a lot of times, instead of just trying, I would just be standing there like, like I just wouldn't say anything. So I think being just like fine, knowing you're probably going to make mistakes. And the good thing about Italians is usually I found that they're very nice and very encouraging when you're trying to speak.
Yeah.
So I would say yes, like the biggest thing about learning any language is just knowing that you're going to make mistakes. You can't be a perfectionist and worry about saying every little thing right. People are also there to help you. Like they want to help you. If you're trying to speak their language, they're already like, wow, this is so great. This is so nice. So um, I think, yeah, not being afraid to make mistakes and also just realizing eventually, you will be able to reach that goal of being able to speak in the language that you're learning with native speakers. And that is just like the best feeling in the world. So those are my final words for everyone.
Okay, sorry, I have to echo this for this. Yes, 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 yes. It's so true, and I do agree with you. It's scary, but uh, people need to find the courage because once you find the courage and you get through the fear and you just don't care about making mistakes anymore and you actually realize that mistakes are an opportunity to learn because the more you make mistake the more mistakes you make, the more you learn. That's the way I think it now. It's just it's just fun in the end. You realize that you were actually making yourself so many problems in your head when actually what you had to do, you just had to speak, and the rest was just coming to you. I just want to say, actually, I have a whole actually I did a workshop a couple of months ago that was called Get the Courage to Speak Italian, where actually I do talk about all of this, like fear of being afraid of speaking Italian.
Hmm.
And then it's actually nothing to be fearful about. It propels you towards what you actually want, like you were saying, like now you are having conversations. So yeah, that workshop is actually here on my YouTube channel. So if you want to watch it, if you're curious to know more, you just put Get the Courage to Speak Italian, you will find it on my channel. But having said that, I would like to thank you, Shia, for being here and for giving us your point of view, because it's great to have someone who have been learning Italian and now is actually, making her dream come true to be in
Hmm.
and travel around and speak to people and being part of that world.
Mhm.
And so, whoever is watching right now, if you are either watching live or the replay, my wish to you is that you do the same, and don't be afraid of making mistakes, or don't let anything stop you, whatever it is, prepositions or roll your r's or whatever it is. Those are just tiny tiny things in the big picture, and the big picture is to communicate and just make yourself understood so that you can actually connect with Italian people and be part of that life. That's all.
Yeah.
So thanks everyone for being here, and hopefully I'll just see you in the next video, or Shia will see you in her next video.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Ciao a tutti!